Okay, so let us begin. So we're going to talk about being Tovel your Kalim. Um, so the first thing to mention is that a lot of people get confused between being Tovel your Kalim and koshering your Kalim. So those are different things. Um, as we'll discuss, koshering your Kalim is when your Kalim have become treif. There's something not kosher inside. So then you need to kosher your kid. There are different ways somebody koshers their dishes. That's either boil hot water or use fire. That's not our discussion. We're talking about being tovel your kalim, and that has nothing to do with if whether or not the dishes have been used for treif or not. So the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, the Gemara says that if you buy um, kalim if you buy dishes from a non-Jew, so there are two things you need to worry about. You need to worry about number one is the kashrus element that maybe they cooked non kosher stuff in there. Um, and then there's something else which is tevilas kalim, which the Gemara says you need to worry about. And the Gemara says it learns it from different psukim in Sefer Bamidbar that kalim bought from a non-Jew need vitaher, which means tefillah, in addition to also being made kosher, the hechsher. So the Gemara says, really, is that true that every single kli, every single utensil needs to be tovel, needs to go in the mikvah? So I think Gemara says, do scissors need tefillah? So the Gemara says, no, it's just talking about kalim, dishes used for seuda, used for eating. Um, so since we're talking about kosher and kalim for eating, that's only talking about kalim used for eating. So too, when we're talking about the need to be tovel kalim to put the dish in the mikvah, so that's only talking about kalim used for eating. Um, so there's different approaches among Rishonim about why we even need to be tovel our kalim in the first place. Why do we need to tovel our dishes? So, like we mentioned, it's not about it has nothing to do with being making the kalim kosher, right? It's a different purpose. So, what is its purpose, right? If the kalim don't need to be kosher, the halacha is also if you buy a new kli, and we know if you buy a new dish, you have to be tovel it. But why? So there are different approaches for this. So one approach is the Rambam's understanding um, that, or one approach is the Rambam specifically says it's not about this, but that some people understand that it has to do with Tumah and Tahara. That in the times of the Torah, in Beis Hamikdash, they were careful about being Tameh and Tar. So simple understanding is that Tfilas Kalim, it's about Toma and Tahara. Um, and that's the simple way of understanding the psukim. That it's talking about making it tahor from any tuma that it had. Um, so that's one approach. Another approach is that it has nothing to do with anything. It's just the Torah tells us that we need to be tovel our kalim. So you have a mitzvah to be tovel your kalim. And then there's another approach, which is the Gemara in Yerushalmi mentions this approach. It's very interesting that the Gemara says that the dishes are leaving from the tumas goy, meaning the impurity of being like non-Jewish, and turning into the kedusha, the holiness of Israel. So it says you almost view it as if the kalim themselves, the dishes themselves, are almost like converting into a into a into Judaism. Um, and there's even an opinion, the Shem Mishmua has an opinion that he just extends this idea so much so that he says that let's say you have someone who's not Jewish, um, then they're converting, so now they're a ger, now they're a convert. So he says that what happens to all his kids that he had when he was non-Jewish. So he says you don't need to be told them because when he told himself, right, when he went himself in the mikvah, so that even counted for all different dishes that he had, for all the kalim that he had. So I don't think we usually poskin like that and say that's true, but that he extends that idea that far. But these different approaches as to what the reason why we would need to even be tovel or kalim in the first place. They have different, they come up in different aspects of the halacha, in the halacha as relates to tefillas kalim. Like for example, there are approaches that say that you don't need to be tovel any dishes that are electric appliances, like let's say a toaster, for example. Like a toaster um, is electric, and it's we view it as mechubar lekarka, which means attached to the ground. And the halacha is for tuma and tahara. It's um, we don't need to know all the halachas. We don't need to get into full details, but the halacha is simply that anything that's attached to the ground um, cannot become tamei, can't become impure. So if that's true, and if tefillas kalim, the reason why we're toveling is all because of Tum and Tahara, then anything that's attached to the ground and somehow some posts can understand electric appliances when they're plugged in, it's attached to the ground, and therefore maybe you don't need to be tovel at all. So again, these whether or not we hold like that, we'll discuss, but it's just saying, just illustrating the point that these different ways you can understand why the reason for being told in the first place do have they do come up in different ways throughout the halachic process. So there's also discussion, which is always important whenever you define a topic in in halacha. The first thing you have to do is understand whether this is deraisa, whether it's a biblical obligation, or derabanan, whether it's rabbinical. And the obvious reason is because anytime you have a question about what suffix, you have a doubt. So if it's a deraisa, if it's biblical, you always have to be much more strict. If it's rabbinical, then usually you can be more lenient. So what is tefillas kalim? Is it a biblical, or is it rabbinical? So many Rishonim understand Tosfos, Ravid, Rabbeinu Tam. They say um, they understand that it is a biblical obligation. And Rashi also comments b'taher. This is a pasuk in the Torah. So if it's a pasuk in the Torah, that usually means that it's a deraisa. It usually means it's biblical. So that is the approach of most Rishonim. There is the opinion of the Ramban. The Ramban holds that it's not a biblical obligation, rather it's rabbinical. And although it's mentioned in the Psukim of the Torah, that's just what we call an asmachta, which means the it's like a hint from the Torah, but it's not really a biblical obligation. It's rabbinical, and therefore you can be more lenient about most things. Um, there's a debate about what did the Rambam hold. Did the Rambam hold it's rabbinical or biblical? Deraisa, derabanan. Okay, but that's a debate. Um, so it would seem that the standard approach is that tefillas kalim is a deraisa, um, and therefore we'd have to be more strict about a lot of things. There's also another discussion. This is a little more nuanced. Is that how should we view this obligation to be tovel our dishes, to be tovel our kalim? Um, the way it's formulated is to view it as a matir or a mitzvah. What does that mean? So meaning you could view it similar to, like, let's say matir means it's something which allows you to do it. Like for example, like let's say your plate becomes straight. Let's say you accidentally cook milk on your plate. Okay, so now you need to kosher your plate, right? So is that a mitzvah to kosher your plate? So we probably assume that that's not really mitzvah. It's just I can't use my plate unless I first make it kosher again, right? So is the obligation, right, to be tova like kela or dishes? Do we view that as something is not necessarily mitzvah? It's just okay. If I want to use my dishes, then before I do it, I have to put it in a mikvah. Or do we say no? It's actually a mitzvah. Um, and so why is this relevant? Because if you view it So it would seem that the Rambam uses as the first way that it's not necessarily a mitzvah. It's just you can't use your kalim until you can't use the dishes until you put in the mikvah. Others say no, it really is a mitzvah. But if you view it as a mitzvah, so then sometimes you can't it's just like sometimes for whatever reason you can't perform a mitzvah. You weren't able to make it like davening, for example. Um, let's say you weren't able to make it for davening. Okay, so sometimes you're own it. It's not your fault, and you really try, but you can't do it. So let's say you're in a place where you're not able to bring your keli to not able to bring the dish to the mikvah. So then it's viewed as a mitzvah and not just simply like not a mati and not something which allows you to do it, not like washing the dishes. Then you're able to use it until you get to a place where you do find a mikvah. So that would seem to be how the Avnei Nevi understands. He says, so this is how it works with Tfilas Kelim. Since it's a mitzvah, so if you're not able to use it without it, like if you're not able to find a place where you're able to bring it to a mikvah, you can still use it. Um, and also that the Russia White, that's what he says about electric appliances. Most poskim say electric appliances do require teal in some way, but some say, let's say you have like let's go back to the toaster example. Where you say how are you gonna stick that in the mikvah? You can't. It's gonna ruin the entire thing. So there's a lot of dishes like that if you try to stick the entire thing with electric, you try to put it in the mikvah, it's gonna ruin the entire thing. So since you since you're not able to perform the mitzvah, so it's okay. So I mean, it's not your fault. It's own it. Um, okay, so that's the discussion there, and then there's and those are issues that are relevant to whatever dishes that you have. So now let's talk about some of the specific materials, um, because because the halacha is very different depending on what type of material your dish is. So the Gemara learns from Psukim and Parshas Matos that metals we say has a requirement of tefillah, and that which like we said maybe rabbinical, but most understand that they're right, that's a biblical obligation. But the Gemara learns that based on the Psukim that a kli cheres, very important term, a kli cheres, that means an earthenware vessel, does not require tefillah. Um, you wouldn't if you buy something made of earthenware, so you don't need to put that in the mikvah. However, what about glass? So what's glass? Glass is not metal, but it's not earthenware. So the Gemara says that glass, um, even though it's made from sand, which is like earthenware, which is also made from sand. So since it's mendable, if it breaks, be able to mend it back together, um, then you would have to tova, you would have to put in a mikvah, but it's only rabbinical in nature. It's not biblical. So that's what the Gemara says about metal, earthenware, and glass. But nowadays we have different materials which aren't necessarily discussed by the Gemara. So the first one we'll discuss is porcelain. So this is already discussed on if you open a Shulchan Aruch on the daf of Shulchan Aruch, Pesach Tshuva, he brings from Rav Yaakov Emden, and he says about porcelain. He says porcelain is he says really it's, he says at the end of the day porcelain is you have to view it in the same way the Gemara views glass. That glass is not listed directly by the Torah. So the Gemara says, what's the qualification that we needed to determine if it's required to be tova or not? Is it mendable? So he says porcelain is not mendable, so it does not require tefillah. Um, Not everyone agrees to that, but that is Rav Yaakov Emden's opinion. I think on the OU website they say you're going to be tovel porcelain. Um, they say recommend the minhag is to to put it in the mikvah, but without a bracha. I think that's what they say on the OU website. Yeah, they say because basically this is also important to understand that anytime we're going anytime we're going to have a doubt about the material, I mean, there's some materials that we know for sure that they need to be put in the mikvah. So those are not an issue. We bring them to the mikvah and we say a bracha. Then there's some materials that we know, right, like pottery, for example, earthenware. So we know those stuff we're not going to be able to total them. So that's also not an issue. You don't need to bring them to mikvah. You just use them. It's not a problem. But then there's a lot of materials which we're not really sure about. We don't know if it really requires tefillah or maybe it doesn't require tefillah. So what we're going to have to do in those situations is bring them to the mikvah and tova them, but we're not going to be able to say a bracha on them. Of course, there is the suggestion that the Shach mentions that so you just if you bring those dishes along with other dishes which you don't have a doubt about, like just bring them with a bunch of metal forks. The metal forks are going to have to be told of them. The metal is listed. So then you say one bracha, you say a bracha on toveling the forks, and you have in mind all the other stuff. Because maybe it doesn't require maybe it does require tefillah, maybe it doesn't. So you tovel them and and um and you have it in mind. But so porcelain, though you said the custom is that you should have to tow them, but don't say bracha, which is not really leniency. It's only really stringency because the fact that you have to bring them to the mikvah. That's saying not saying the bracha is not really such a big deal for you. What would be the leniency would be that you don't have to make the trip to the mikvah. But so that's how they write. Pyrex. So Pyrex seemingly is like glass and requires tefillah. And I think poskim say you should even say a bracha on Pyrex because it's like glass. Um, the big discussion is about stuff with a Shulchan Aruch talks about stuff with a metal coating. Like Shulchan Aruch says, let's say you have a earthenware plate with a metal coating. So Shulchan Aruch says, um, in that case, well, he brings there's different opinions from Rishonim. Some say it needs to be fully coated inside and out. Some say it just needs to be coated on the inside. Some say it's coated on the inside or the outside. So Shulchan Aruch says if it's coated on the inside, then you have to be tovel and say a bracha. The Ramah says, some say, the Ramah says they don't make a bracha because maybe it has to be covered inside and outside. But either way, so let's take our dinner plates. So our dinner plates, they're made out of I think we would call it cheres. I don't know what the exact material is. The dinner plates usually like maybe porcelain. Um, but yeah, dinner plates are clear cheres usually. So they you would think that they don't get tefillah. They don't have to be toveled, but they're often covered with a glaze on it. So since they're covered with a glaze on it, you would think based on what the Shulchan Aruch says that they would have to be toveled. And at least what the Ramah says, maybe toveled without a bracha. Um, the thing is though, is that our glaze is not really like exactly like the glaze that was discussed by the Shulchan Aruch, apparently. Um, you know, our glaze, newer glaze is made from painting on a very thin layer of shellac. So some say you should be tovel it as a chumrah, but really the basic, most logical way to understand it is that it's such a thin layer. It's not even really called like it's not even really what the Shulchan Aruch is discussing. Um, the Shulchan Aruch is probably discussing a much thicker layer. Um, so so that's yeah. So that's a discussion among modern day poskim that do you have to be tovel or not? Um, in So Rabbi Leibowitz told us in Shir is that he said in yeshiva, so in YU, he said we generally assume that these glass lined kalim, which is like most all of our classic dinner plates, do not require tefillah. Um, but there are many poskim who say that you should be told all those. You should put them in the mikvah. Just don't say a bracha on it because we're not really sure. And the reasons why you wouldn't in the Sefer Tefillas Kalim. So he says there's a few reasons why you would think that you shouldn't have to even be told these dinner plates at all. Number one, because glass um, only would require tefillah because it's similar to metal, but a thin layer of glaze is not similar to metal at all. Also, a metal coating only would require tefillah on the rabbinical level. So glass, which is already rabbinical level, with the coating is two rabbinical things, so it's not very strong. Um, there's even an opinion in the Gemara that metal lined kalim don't require it to be told at all. So there's a lot of reasons why you can be why they can be lenient about it. Also they quote from Roey was quoted from the Temler. He said that he held very strongly that dinner plates with glaze on it do not require tefillah. But I think the OU on their website, I think it says you should be told without a bracha. I think that's what I saw. Definitely on the arcade they said to be told then think without a bracha. So I mean, if you're anyways going to the mikvah, if you're anyways taking a trip to the mikvah and you have all the plates, you might as well just be told them. Don't say a bracha, but you should also just probably just ask your local Orthodox rabbi what he thinks. You have to be told the dinner plates or not. What about plastic? Do you have to be told, let's say you buy plastic dishes? Do you have to be told those? So you would think that glass requires tefillah because it's mendable. So, Chazal didn't have plastic, it's a new material, but if they would have had plastic, they would have said it's even more mendable than glass. So the poskim, they debate this. Rav Moshe held that you don't need to be told about your plastic. Therefore, most people in the U.S. they don't really talk about plastic because the plastic is not part of the decree of the Chazal. But the Minchas Yitzchak, he held plastic does require tefillah, which is why in Israel many do require apparently tefillah on plastic. The Chazon Ish said plastic does not require tefillah. Um, yeah, so apparently Royer held that you should be told about plastic because he held that he thought that all our dishes are going to be made from plastic. So if we don't say it's told about plastic, then we're just going to forget this idea of being told about in general. But I think definitely in the U.S., most people don't require to be told about for plastic materials. What about aluminum? So aluminum is metal. It's a metal we think metal needs to be told. But the thing is, the Torah lists 6 metals specifically in the psukim, and aluminum was not yet discovered at the time. So debate about aluminum. So Moshe says different things in different places. There's a famous tshuva from Rav Moshe that it says aluminum is not a metal because now it's in Torah. But then he says it requires tefillah with a bracha. So I think so. I think most people say that aluminum does require tefillah. So they quote that Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky held if plastic doesn't require tefillah, then aluminum doesn't require tefillah either. But others argue about that. And so these things are all up for debate, and they have these lists online of what to do with every single material. Um, Aluminum, OU they say, aluminum if it's heavy grade, disposable, then yes with the bracha. Aluminum, non-disposable, yes tefillah, yes bracha. Aluminum and disposable, they no tefillah and no bracha. So that's how the OU puts it on their website. Wood, so wood does not require tefillah. There's a debate. What if there's the wooden dish and inside the dish there's a metal thing which is basically holding up the dish. So if there's a metal thing there that's holding up the dish on one dish, it's still not, you still don't need to be tovel. But the shach says you should be tovel it without bracha because maybe that makes it like a metal, maybe that makes it like a metal dish. What about disposable dishes? Um, so so apparently Rav Schechter that he, he holds that a glass bottle requires to be toveled. So it used to be a thing that when Snapple bottles were made out of glass, that everyone would ask for a cup to pour their Snapple bottle in. So even though the Snapple bottles were disposable, um, and if that's true that you need to be told things even if they're disposable, that would be a big problem because you get a soda can, right? And you buy from the store and you want to crack it open and start drinking from it. So if disposable things need to be if 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 disposable things still need to be told, then that's going to be that'll be a big issue. So a lot of posting they find different ways to be lenient about it. Shlomo Zalman brings some different approaches. Um, Sri H says since you throw it away, they can immediately after using it, you see there's never mind you can buy it in the first place. Um, but the most famous, I think the easiest way to understand is the opinion from Ramosha that he says that since he has Ramosha talking about aluminum pans, and he says with aluminum tins, they get worse every single time you use it. So something that gets worse every time you use it doesn't require tefillah. So certainly soda can, as soon as you open it, you can't you can't use it again at that point. So therefore that would be disposable. You would not require tefillah. And so too with aluminum tins also that you say that since it gets worse every single time, that wouldn't require tefillah. Um, some people say that if you're going to reuse aluminum tins, that it would require tefillah. But from Moshe, it would seem like that would not be required. And then Shefker has a very interesting opinion, which we'll mention. We'll close with this. That he says that Shefker says that any any uh any dish that you buy from a corporation is at least enough of a doubt for you to not say bracha. It's only it's not a kula. Rav Shafter's opinion is that what triggers a tefillas kelim or requires you to be told your dishes is buying a dish from a non-Jew. And a corporation may not be a non-Jew because it depends how do you view a corporation. Do you view it as a non-Jew or do you view it as just nothing, right? So so a corporation may not be considered non-Jew. So if you're buying any dish from a corporation, which even includes an LLC, so then you wouldn't take bracha. So Rav Shachter apparently hold like that, and that would mean that he just doesn't. I mean, it's not any more lenient. He just probably wouldn't say bracha on any of the stuff that he told us. Um, but that is his opinion there. So and then yeah, the main thing to know is that those are the main materials, and then there's lists online on all these kashrist websites about what to do with specific materials and specific dishes. But that's the basis in regard to why we do tefillas kalim and the different materials and disposable kalim. We'll stop there.